As I mentioned in my last video, it's May and end of grade testing is looming large in the minds of your child. And I can promise you that at school, they've been talking about them, they've been working on concepts. They may even be under pressure from their teacher or feel like they're under pressure from their school to perform well on these tests. And this measure of stress that they might be feeling is actually going to be a hindrance. Well, the other thing that is going to be might be a hindrance is some of the aspects of the test itself. And I wanted to share some of those details with you. To give you an idea, the reading test and the math test, the average length of these two tests is 2 hours each. Now, you know your child. I want you to think for a minute. When is the last time you saw them sit down for 2 solid hours and focus on something academic? The answer is probably you never see them do that. This is an extraordinary length of time for them to have intense focus. And it's very difficult because it's not something that they're used to doing. So that's the first obstacle, the length of time of the test. The second obstacle is during that 2 hour period when they're taking the reading test, for example, they are going to be reading 6 to 7 different passages. And those passages are written by different authors with different writing voices about different topics. The passages can vary from fiction to something about a science concept that they should have known something about, or to a historical figure. And they're basically jumping, their brains are jumping from one topic to the other. Um, as they take this test. And that can be a real obstacle because what they were just focused on, they have to dismiss that and refocus on something else. On the math part of the EOG, they are going to be doing 46 to 53 problems. And again, those problems vary from story problems where they're required to use traditional multiplication or traditional division. The very next problem, they may have a graph that they have to interpret, or they may be using fractions. They may be doing something with geometry. They could even possibly be doing something where they're incorporating what they just learned about fractions, or a combination of these things. So their minds during this 2 hour period of each one of these tests is jumping from concept to concept. And honestly, that creates a lot of what I call academic fatigue. They just get worn out. It's very difficult for them to do that. So I wanted to share something with you that I tell my students. And it's actually something that only takes a few seconds, and it gives their brain just a little bit of a break so that they can go back and look at the test, go to the next passage or the next problem with a little bit of a fresh perspective. And that this very simple thing is actually just look up. Don't stare at the computer the entire time. Look up, look around the room. If you're in between a reading passage, think about what you just read and answered questions about for a second. Then take a deep breath, look back at the computer, and focus on the next topic. On the reading EOG, this actually is like a mental reset for them to focus on what's coming next. On the math EOG, have them stop for a second, because one of the things they have to decide, especially since the EOG has a lot of story problems on them, they have to look at them and figure out, okay, what function do I need to do? Do I add, subtract, multiply, or divide? Is this a fraction? A problem with fractions in it. Okay, how do I add fractions again? What do I do with finding a common denominator? As they are thinking, remind them, don't stare at the screen. As you're thinking, look up, look around the room, look at the ceiling, just look out the window even, and think about what function you need to use in order to solve that problem. Then look back at the problem again and begin to work. This simple activity of taking a deep breath, looking away from the computer for a minute, and refocusing their minds or thinking without staring at the computer can be a real help to them. It can alleviate their stress and honestly might be a game changer on these EOGs.